We all know what graphs look like, but a lot of people don't really appreciate how amazing these things really are. They make it possible to analyze massive amounts of data in seconds and to understand physical relationships between two different things very intuitively. They're very, very useful, and that's why we use them so much in science. And properly understanding how to read a graph is a super useful skill because of this. It allows us to understand a variety of different problems and situations. If you're doing a science GCSE, this one skill alone could help boost your grade 1 or 2 levels, just because you'll be able to apply it to so many different scenarios, not even just in physics. So pay attention and let's dive into how I like to approach understanding graphs. You should always start off by looking at the axes. That's the lines along the left and the bottom. These are the first thing that you should pay attention to because they tell you what physical quantities are changing. Now, as you go from left to right on a graph, the value on the x-axis will be getting bigger, and as you go from right to left, the value on the x-axis is getting smaller. As you move up the graph, the value on the y-axis gets bigger, and as you move down the graph, the value on the y-axis gets smaller. So now that we know what the quantities are that we're looking at, let's think about how the data itself is actually changing. On simple graphs like this, we'll usually have a trend line, and it's a good idea to follow this from one end to the other and try and describe exactly what's happening. It's a good idea to start going from left to right because then you can start off your description by saying as the x value increases. If the line goes up as you go from left to right, then you can say as the x value increases, the y value increases. If the line goes down as you go from left to right, you can say as the x value increases, the y value decreases. Maybe a bit of both happens like this, and that way you could say, well, as the x value increases, the y value increases up to a point, but then the y value starts to decrease beyond that point. So descriptions like this are what are going to get you marks in exams. So it's really, really useful. And there's a couple of key phrases that you can use as well. If both values are increasing and the graph is a straight line that goes through the origin, that's the bottom left corner, then you can say that these two things are directly proportional. If as the x value increases, the y value decreases and it's a straight line, you can say that the two variables are inversely proportional. Finally, pay attention to the numbers and the units. We've already got a feel for how these two variables are related, but if we want to talk about this in any detail, we're going to actually need to put some numbers to that as well. It's a good idea to look at what the smallest and the biggest number are for both the x values and the y values. And you try and use these numbers in your answer when you're giving a description as well. So let's have a look at a couple of examples first of all. Here's a graph showing the motion of a bus. You can see that we have time on the x-axis and distance on the y-axis. So we're looking at how the distance of that bus changes over time. Okay, so now when we look at the data itself, it shows that at first, as the time increases, the distance also increases. If distance is increasing over time, that means the bus is moving. However, you can see at 5 minutes and 1 kilometre, after the bus has moved 1 kilometre in 5 minutes, then the distance stops increasing as the time continues increasing. The distance remains constant. If the distance is staying constant as time moves by, that means the bus has stopped moving. Great, simple. Let's have a look at another example. This is a graph for heating a block of metal. Now we've got energy on the x-axis and we've got temperature on the y-axis. We can see that as the energy given to the block increases, the temperature of the block increases as well. However, this time it's not a straight line, so we can't say that these two things are directly proportional. Well, that wraps it up for this crash course on graphs. I hope it was useful and you have a newfound appreciation for these incredibly useful things.